welcome back to another episode of our life seasons where we talk about the raw and honest truth to navigating through the different seasons of life. I'm your host Wen. If you've been loving the podcast episodes, do leave a review of this podcast on whichever platform that you're on and let me know which topics are your favorite. Now, today, let's get into this episode. I was just reflecting on my life, I think a couple of days back, when I wrote down the lessons that I've learned over the years. And obviously, there were a lot of them that I've learned like literally over a year ago, and of course I can't fit all of them into this episode because it's gonna be so long, but I've actually filtered them out into the lessons I wish I knew earlier, and I actually picked up my top 7 life lessons. So let's get straight into the first lesson I wish I knew earlier, and that is to understand that there's nothing wrong with desiring a different route, to want a different life, okay? And this is so important. I learned this over the years, especially in 2022 onwards, where I kind of was figuring life out and kind of know what I wanted to do in life in terms of career and business wise, whether I should work or get a degree like everyone else around me was doing that, because getting a degree after graduating high school or polytechnic in my case was the most common and natural decision. And I think a lot of you guys might also have had faced like this situation before, where you're wondering if you go to work first or should you continue university. But I think a lot of times it comes naturally for a lot of people, but for me it wasn't like that, okay? Because I knew deep down that it was not a route that sat right with me. Going to get a degree wasn't something that I really wanted to do, just because of the interest that I had or the passion that I had, which was in design, right? Back then, even until now, I felt like I preferred working experience more than a piece of paper. And I do not need to spend like kind of another 4 years getting a degree and then figuring out what I wanted to do, because I was so certain with what I like and what I dislike at the very early stages of, me figuring out, or at the early stages of my career path, right? And I was very lucky to be able to do that. I was very certain about the industry that I wanted to be in, which was in the creative industry. And that was what I did. I went with that decision and never looked back. It was the best decision I ever made, because I was so certain of what I bring to the table and am confident in saying that no matter how bad the job market was, I was always able to find a job that fits my criteria. Yes, I know it's a very bold statement to put out there, but I always believe in this concept of going to an interview with the mentality of why should I choose your company over others. As much as you're applying for a role, your preference should always be considered too, okay? Never give anyone, or even in this case a company, to dictate whether you fit a role, because it can be vice versa. Whether the company fits you and what you want to achieve from that role, whether it's monetary gains or just learning opportunities, always remember to put your best interest at heart. If not, no one else will, okay? Anyways, that's kind of like a topic for another episode, but what I want to say is that I knew I wanted a complete different route from everyone else, and even had a hard time convincing my parents, because they were pretty much having like this really traditional mindset, or just a fear that, oh, if I don't get a degree, if my daughter doesn't get a degree, she's gonna lose out on a lot of things in life when it comes to salary wise, or just putting myself on par with the rest. Like, they felt like I was at a loss. I had never ever felt like that, just because, like I mentioned again, I knew what I had to offer, and I knew my strengths and capability, and I knew that I cherish work experience more, okay? So I choose to make that decision, and I own it anyways, because I was so certain. The thing about me is that when I'm certain about something, I will go all out and make sure I get my point across and achieve that. And because of that certainty and confidence that I am able to not have any regrets in life and make something out of nothing. And that is something I want you guys to learn too. Trust me, it's a very, very, very beneficial for every aspects of your life. Be it getting a role in your dream company or building a healthy relationship with others, having this certainty and this confidence will really bring you a very long way, okay? So if you've always felt like you were different, like you were a rebel, like myself, know that there's nothing wrong with desiring a different route, to want a different life, okay? Go for the decision that you think is right in the moment. Tap into your intuition and heart. It will always lead you to where you need to be. May not be where you think you'll be, but where you need to be. Because throughout my whole journey of like this 4 to 5 years of actually working, I realized that I kind of pivot from, the design industry, like just doing a lot of design work, to right now where I am, which is marketing. They're not very far apart, which is why I say I was very certain with the type of work I want to do. But I also allow myself to have that space to kind of explore, and I kind of dabbled into marketing, and I've always love marketing, social media marketing to be specific, okay? So even at the end of the day, you detour or you take a different route, change your mind, know that, you're able to own that decision of yours, knowing it was the best decision that you can make with what you have in that moment, and you will do it all over again, okay? It is your life at the end of the day, so you have to take control of it and steer it in a direction that you will not regret, but be so happy and so proud of yourself for giving your best shot. Okay, now next on the list is to understand that everyone is trying their best to live life with what they have. So please be kind and please be as understanding as you can, even though I know sometimes it can get really tough, especially when it's someone whom you're really close to, like a family member or a close friend, because those people, or rather the people that are closest to you, have the ability to trigger you the most. Okay, as crazy as it sounds, I realize as I go through life, I know that the people around me, because I care so much about them, that's why I kind of give them the power to trigger me. And this is when you gotta take back your power. Okay, I used to be so triggered by everything and anything under the sun, and I'm just really reactive to life. Okay, to be really honest, I don't respond, I reacted a lot. So the smallest things can trigger me and ruin my day, and it was until I realized that if I were to choose to see everyone and everything from a different lens, a lens of love, and know that it's okay, that person is triggering me, is probably trying their best as well to make the best decision that they can make with what they have, just like myself, and that itself is very commendable and so relatable, right? Thinking that way really allowed me to calm myself down and take a moment to pause and breathe before I react based off of my emotions in that moment, which may not be the best type of emotions, okay? These few seconds of pause and breather really makes a huge difference in your life in the long run. So you no longer get triggered easily. You learn the power of putting yourself in people's shoes and be understanding and train yourself to think of like the possibilities of why people react a certain way or why they act a certain way, to try to understand where they are coming from, okay? All this puts your mind in a place where you care for people genuinely and you have control over how you feel. You no longer give people the power to determine how you feel, which will affect what emotions you choose to run your day, which then will eventually affect how you choose to operate on a day-to-day, right? And this is a long-term effect. So, and speaking of emotions, the third lesson that I learned is that no tough emotions or situations are ever permanent. Everything is temporary if you want it to be. The key here is that if you want it to be, because most of the time when we feel that we are stuck in a particular situation or feeling and not knowing how to get out of it, what we are essentially telling ourselves subconsciously is that I don't believe that there are oh my god, I can't speak today. that there are other possibilities other than staying stuck, and I don't see a way out. This is essentially what you're telling yourself, right? And this narrative that you have, whether it's verbalized or just a mental note, will affect how you feel and eventually how you act, which will then manifest into your reality. And this is just a part of our life cycle, which I talked about in episode 51, right? So this cycle is really important because I constantly talk about this, and this cycle basically runs your life. That's why I call it the life cycle. So if this concept is foreign to you, or you can't see the connection between our thoughts, emotions, and actions and reality eventually, please give that episode a listen, okay? Just know that everything in life is figure outable, and there's a good book by Marie Forleo, and the book is literally called Everything is Figure Outable. And like everything, it all starts from the mindset. So please remember, nothing is ever permanent. Like the seasons in life, they come and go for the other seasons to actually happen, right? This is just how life is, which is why we call it the life cycle again, not a life linear or whatever. Okay, it is a cycle for a reason. You gotta feel the pain to know what is pleasure. You gotta feel insecure to know what is security or confidence, right? You gotta feel sadness to know what is happiness. Everything comes in duality and comes in dual form. So embrace all forms and you'll learn how to live in the present moment. You'll learn that the only moment that exists is this current moment. It's not the future, it's not the past, okay? Focusing on only what's on your current plate and not worrying about the future or dwell on the past. And know that this really, like I mentioned, it's now, okay? Your reality is happening now because of your past worries or your past narrative that you constantly have. So to change your current reality, you have to start changing your mindset, okay? Whatever that you have of the future is an assumption of the past, and whatever happened in the past happened for you to be where you are now and who you need to be now, okay? It is all needed for your growth. So there is no point in either prepping for the future or hoping on the past, because or harping on the past, because Both don't exist. The only thing that exists is your current reality. Okay? Next lesson, and that is a huge one because I've seen people and even myself have this misconception that to be healed is when you are happy and positive all the time, and when you're not means you failed at healing or that you're not doing well. Okay? No, because please know that, and please get this ingrained in your mind, it's okay to not be happy and positive all the time. Sometimes you just need to embrace your tough emotions too, okay? Sometimes you just need to sit there and really feel into your emotions, even the negative one, even the tough ones, and know that at the end of the day, only you can get yourself out of it, okay? Like I mentioned in episode 42, part of the healing process is to allow yourself to feel your emotions, big and small emotions, and be super open about how you feel and why you're feeling it. What's causing you to feel this way? Figure it out, work through it with yourself, and most importantly, don't beat yourself up for having such emotions. Okay, we're all human after all. We all have big and small emotions. The best part about being a human is that we get to feel emotions. Can you imagine a life where you don't feel anything at all? Like you can't feel sadness, or you can't feel happiness or excitement or fear? I literally can't. I really honestly can't, because feelings, honestly, having emotions really brings a different part of life, right? If that happens, where a day where you can't feel emotions at all, what I would imagine life to be is to be so boring and just mundane. Like, I don't know how, it's just a very boring feeling, and everything is just so stagnant. Like, you can't feel excitement, you can't feel sadness. I would rather feel the dual parts of emotions and know that at the end of the day, I could deal with them. And that's the best part of being a human, okay? Now, next lesson that I wish I knew earlier is to let people judge. It's not your job to satisfy or to justify your value or worth to someone. Okay, I can't stress this enough, honestly. The people who are truly meant for you or made for you will make the time and effort to get to know you for you, and not the surface level you. And it all goes back to self-worth, knowing who you are and what you bring to the table. As mentioned in episode 32 of Knowing You as a Privilege, means that, you don't have to prove anything to anyone. There's nothing to prove, and you won't feel a need to prove, because you are so secure within your body and know that regardless of whatever people say, or regardless of what, people will still judge, right? Good or bad, people will still judge. And for the people that do judge, no matter what you say or what you do, they will always have something to say. And like I mentioned before, our minds will find evidence or even make up one to convince ourselves and to prove a point that we're so adamant about. So if someone has a narrative about you as a person, or what they've heard about you, just know that they'll be able to always find a way to justify why they have that judgment against you. There's nothing that you can do that will change that. So the best way is to understand this concept and just ignore. Just know that people will judge. Let them be. Work on yourself so much that you can be so certain of who you are as a person at the core, and your people will know you for you, where judgments would not even happen, because they too understand this concept. Okay, always remember that it's not your job to convince someone to like you or that you're a good person, because as long as you're certain about it and you can go to bed every night feeling good about yourself, you have done your part. And if you ever feel a need to convince someone why you're a good person, it shows one or two things. Okay, one thing, you have yet to get to a point where you have worked on yourself enough to be confident of who you are as a person, and you still care about what other people think of you as a person, right? And you allow them to dictate you and to dictate your values, which, by the way, if this is you, it's time to actually take back your power. So listen to episode 21. Okay, and the second one is, they are not your people to begin with, because the people who requires you to justify why they need you in your life usually are people who have a lot of inner work to be done, and you are not obliged, and I mention this again, you are not obliged to help them work through it unless they are ready and receptive to it. So the best way is to just walk away and live your own life. Okay, all in all, there can be a ton of reasons as to why someone would want to judge you and have a lot to say about you. But always remember that the judgment says a lot about that person and not you. Remember, it's never personal. Never take things too personal. And speaking of which, lesson 6 is to not take anything personally, because you never know what someone else is going through. And most of the time, their actions are just a reflection of their inner conflicts and struggles. And I learned this through seeing how people can easily send hate to someone through comment sections or just through hate comments, and I experienced that myself as well. Okay, These haters are humans at the end of the day. Back to lesson 2 of everyone is trying their best to live the life with what they have. So please be kind and understanding, right? That, we are all emotional beings, and sometimes emotions can get the better of us, and we react based on how we feel at that moment. May not be the best representation of us or our personality, but it is what it is, right? And like I mentioned, I've experienced this myself. As much as I have a lot of people or a lot of you guys who send me love and support, which I really do appreciate, I do get some nasty comments too. Okay, it's a very normal part and parcel of life. Let me give you an example. The video that I posted about the truth of my healing journey, there were a lot of love that was sent my way, but there were also a couple of people who left comments on how it was such an attention grabbing video and I just wanted people to pity me. I know that this narrative is not mine to keep. It's not the reason why I posted it. It was so clear to me that it was a trigger for them. Even when the captions explain why I posted that video, it is what it is, right? They were triggered by that video, and instead of getting all upset and mad about the comments, or even worse, attacking them back, all I did was send love to them, even mentally, right? Solely because I understood where the anger or judgments came from, and that was me triggering a part of them that is showing emotions means you're weak or means that you want attention, right? This mindset can come from a lot of past experiences that they might have even as a kid. Maybe they were once told that, if you were to show any signs of vulnerability like crying, people will come at you, people will eat you up and have leverage over you. So maybe it was even like the past relationships that taught them that by expressing their emotions, they are deemed as weak. There can be a lot of reasons as to why they feel a certain way or why they judge or why they're triggered by that video. But what I'm getting at is that people who have so much hate towards someone or life are usually the ones that are hurting the most internally and mentally, because they don't have or they don't know how to work through these emotions, and they don't have a safe space for them to be vulnerable, and so they bottle it up, and long enough these emotions becomes a trigger and it turns into anger towards others. Okay, when you think of it this way, it's actually quite sad. I don't have the heart to call them out or to send hate back to them, because they are humans after all, humans that are just hurting, and that's how I like to see it. So I don't take anything personally. Nothing is ever too personal, okay? It's always a hidden meaning and reasoning to why people react a certain way or why people behave in a certain way. The more nasty they are, the more hurt they are feeling internally, okay? So even concepts like this might even trigger some people, but it doesn't matter to me. Maybe as time passes and they think of what I just said, it all makes sense, and that could be where the change happens, and that is what I'm banking on, especially with our live seasons. Like I mentioned, you guys know this, I talk a lot about things that are very straightforward. I'm very cutthroat about certain things because I need to get my point across to you guys, and sometimes it may not be the best thing that you want to hear at that moment, but it might be something that you need to hear and will only seep in with you after some time. And sometimes this might trigger hate or anger within you, and doesn't really matter to me, okay? Because I know that, to give you an example, one of our live seasons listener, I think you're probably watching this, told me that he did not believe in the whole concept of self-help, because it all sounds like fluff. He felt like it was all fluff and it just did not click for him. And when he came across one of our live seasons episode, he felt like it was just another self-help bullshit, and he was so triggered by what I said in that video. But it got to him eventually, because he knew deep down there was some sort of truth to it. And long story short, he's now a long-term listener of our live seasons. So see how it was never about me or our live seasons, but about him. When he was ready to receive the information or new concept, it naturally came to him, and I was just the messenger. Okay, it's never ever personal. So please remember that. Never ever take things too personal. Alright, we're at our last lesson. I wish I knew earlier is that you are never too busy for something. Busy is just a state of mind. I mentioned this before in one of my earlier episodes. In episode 3, I don't believe in not having enough time for the things we really want and desire, okay? So when I say, or when you hear people say I don't have enough time, it just means that this is not my priority, because trust me when I say we always end up making time for the things that we want, okay? Think about everything that you've always wanted to do or have so much passion for. You always somehow find a way to get it done, right? It's not a question of whether it should be done, but more of when am I gonna do it? Or if you want to do it, it is already part of your busy schedule, right? You should have already put it in your busy schedule and know that it's a non-negotiable that you're going to get it done. because I think everything really honestly boils down to prioritizing your task and your time. What you choose to spend your time on, how much time for each task, and what is not so important often becomes like the constant thing that is on your to-do list but never gets done. Okay, and I know a lot of you guys might relate to this. There will be a few tasks or even a task that will constantly be on your to-do list that you'll never get to it, not because you don't have time for it, just because you don't prioritize it, because you prioritize something else over that particular task. Okay, so I always believe that if you want to know how successful someone is, give them a task and see how long they take to do it, because a lot of quote-unquote successful people are really good at prioritizing their task and making time for the things that they value, and that can be self-care activities or time with their family or friends. It doesn't have to be business or money related or career related. Okay, so you see how being too busy is just a mindset. This also applies for relationship. Okay, I want you to know that no one can ever be too busy for you. If someone says that to you, just know that it's a way of saying that you're just not my priority at this point in time. And that is okay. Alright, I'm not about to start this toxic war of you guys going to your partners and be like, why am I not your priority? Because like I mentioned before, again and again and again, you should be your biggest priority. Your mental well-being, your self-care, your self-love activities, and whatever you want to accomplish in life should be your priority. You should be your biggest priority, okay, before anyone else. Because if you can't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anyone else. Prioritize yourself, because then you will feel complete and have more capacity to think of someone else and provide value to others. Okay, I talked about this in episode 49. So if this is not registering for you yet, please revisit that. All right. As promised, before I end, I want you to think about what are the lessons that you have learned over the years that you wish you knew earlier. This is a time for you to reflect on your life and remind yourself of these lessons and why they are important, and do a sense check on whether you're applying these lessons in your current day-to-day life, and what are some lessons that you're working on and learning to work on but you're not quite there yet, and what can you do to get yourself there. Please share with me. Take some time for yourself to think through all this, and please share all of your life lessons or any life lessons that you found really helpful in the comment section below, so that you can actually help to impact people's life, or we can actually learn and use this space to learn from each other and inspire others to grow and glow as well. Okay, so that's all for today's episode. As usual, if you have any burning questions or topics that you want me to cover, please drop me a DM on Instagram at our live seasons, or comment on whichever platform that you're listening to this so I can get back to you. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!